Here are 3 simple reasons, or maybe even steps, why you might not be improving and seeing the results that you want with your singing. So if this is something that's interesting to you, make sure to check out today's episode. Welcome to the Singing Simply show, where we aim to break down singing into very easy and digestible parts for you. Because I know on this journey of learning to sing, especially when you're first starting off, it can be really, really confusing. And so if this sounds like you, make sure to check out this episode and leave a review if this is super, super useful. So this episode was actually inspired by a podcast that I listened to. And the guy who runs the podcast is called Dan Koh. And yes, it was actually more like a business kind of podcast, like showing you how to run your business, because, that's what I kind of do. But I was really inspired by this particular quote that he shared, because I think this quote really applies to even our singing, right? And it's crazy because oftentimes when you learn things in one area of life, it actually applies to other areas of your life as well. And the quote was this: if you are lost, the answer is education. If you are educated, the answer is action. And if you're acting, the answer is consistency. Now, why am I sharing this with you, right? The reason why I'm sharing this with you is what I find for, a lot of people starting off, some of my clients in Summit, when they're first starting off, right? We often do the right things at the wrong time, because a lot of us, we're putting in the work, we're doing things, but we're doing the right things at the wrong time. And what this often means is you're not going to see the results as quickly, if any, right? Because you're not doing things in the right sequential order. And so I wanted to basically break down this quote for you guys today. I want to break it down for you all and to give you some really, really actionable steps so you can go and work and improve on your voice. And so what are these 3 simple steps, right? So basically step 1, if you're a complete beginner and you have almost zero knowledge of what singing is, how to get better, you basically just want to get started. The very first step before you do anything is you want to do some very, very basic research, right? Some basic research, which means, understanding what are some of the terminology that's involved. What are some of the terminology that's involved in singing? What are some songs that you like? Get some research on some goals, maybe research some people to follow and listen to, right? Because what this is going to allow you to do is it's going to allow you to start getting involved in this new world. And the reason why you want to do this is, especially when you step into a new area like singing, right? You want to get familiar with as much of the language and as much of the landscape as possible, so that when you start practicing, when you start, working on it, you're not completely left in the dust. And this can often speed up the whole process. Now, how can you do this right? You can check out podcasts like this. So, little plug, if this is useful, make sure to follow, make sure to leave a review. But, even resources like YouTube. YouTube is a phenomenal resource to look at it. Now, the caveat here, though, is don't spend too much time researching, because what you can get into is something called analysis paralysis, where you're constantly researching all these different terms. And I was a big victim of this, because when I first started singing, I'd often spend hours and hours just watching all these YouTube tips, tutorials, all these different things, right? And what that ended up doing is, and I'm going to lead into this, which is step 2, is once you've done your basic research, right, which is, just understanding some general ideas about singing, some general kind of terminology, just start practicing. Just start practicing and get into it, right? Because what often happens is as I said before, you get stuck in analysis paralysis, which is, you're constantly researching what's the best way to do things, what's the best exercises, what's the best routines. And what can often happen is you don't actually end up putting in the work. Right? You don't actually put in the work, and you end up kind of dancing around what you need to do, right? You feel like you're making progress by researching, by watching all these videos, but you're not actually doing the work. And so what do we mean by doing the work, right? All this means basically is you sit down, you work through a little simple routine, you work on some songs, and you're trying to be very deliberate here. What are some things I'm trying to improve on? Is it my pitch? Is it my range? Is it my breath support? What are some of these things I'm trying to improve? And you apply it to a song, right? And this is what practicing actually means. And so this is basically step 2, right? Once you've built some basic knowledge of singing, then you want to start executing, start practicing. Don't dance around and wait. And once you've executed this right, step 3, which means now that you know what you need to work on, you're practicing. Step 3 now becomes consistency, right? Which means you have to do it again and again and again and again, right? And the reason why is when it comes to building the voice, when it comes to improving your voice, right, it's kind of like watering a plant. It's kind of like watering a plant, which means you have to give it the right, nutrients, sunlight, the right stimulus so it can actually grow to the way you want it, right? You can't expect a seed to suddenly turn into a flower after one day. And so what is that kind of missing ingredient, right? You need to be consistently giving your voice the right stimulus or exercise for it to grow and improve. And you'll often find this, right? I've had people reach out to me and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm not seeing results. And I've been practicing for the past month. And yes, I think there are things that we can tweak. Maybe there are some things to help them understand, some new exercises for them to practice, new understanding, right? But it's only been 1 month. It's only been a month. You need to be a bit more patient here. Be a bit more patient here. And so this is why step 3 is going to be really, really important, right? And so if you're already doing the work, if you already know what you need to work on, but you just haven't seen the results, sometimes you just need to take a bit more time. Just take a bit more time with this. So these are basically the 3 steps, right? Step 1, do some basic research on what you're aiming for, what's like the lingo, what are some of the techniques that you need to do. Then step 2, start practicing, just start executing. Don't wait until you know everything, right? Just start practicing, because when you practice, you'll figure out what you need to know anyway. And then step 3, if you're already aware of what you need to work on and then you're practicing, then you need to be working on consistency. And so you can kind of use these 3 steps as a way to reverse engineer. If you're not seeing results, well, where am I, right? Do I know what I need to work on? Am I already practicing, or am I just, just stuck on YouTube videos and just watching things again and again? Or am I really consistent here, right? Which means, am I practicing, consistently throughout the week? Or am I just practicing once, every week, or like once every 2 weeks, right? Use these 3 steps as a way to reverse engineer where you need to go, to reverse engineer which step you are on. So then that becomes your focus, because if you do not know what you need to do, go to step 1. If you are not putting in the work, focus on step 2. If you are not consistent, focus on step 3, right? And here's the thing, as much as I am sharing and breaking this down into 3 simple steps, just know that there is a bit of a rinse and repeat, or a bit of like a cycling, which means sometimes you need to go back to step 1 to do some basic research. Sometimes you need to actually get back into just doing the work. And sometimes you need to be focusing on your consistency. So you might be rinsing and repeating between these 3. And that's totally cool. And in fact, this is actually the process I work on with my summer clients, which means we go through these 3 steps, right? Help them build awareness, help them practice. And because we do this on a weekly basis, going through these 3 steps on a weekly basis, that's why they see so much results. And that's why they go much faster, because they're constantly, building new knowledge. They're constantly practicing. They're constantly working on their consistency. And when you stack this week after week after week, you get so much more improvements. And so one thing I would like to encourage you is, yes, take as much as you can from this episode. Take as much value from today's episode. But just know that you don't have to do this on your own, right? You can get the right support. You can have people there to guide you, have the right community, have the right teacher. So don't feel like you have to do this on your own. So here's a bit of a little how-to, or a bit of a exercise for you. After this episode, or maybe you might even want to pause this episode here, right? I want you to just go through these 3 steps and ask yourself, which step do I need to focus on? Do I need to focus more on, doing a bit more research? Or maybe I've done tons of research. I'm always watching YouTube videos. Do I just need to actually sit down and spend 15 minutes working on my voice? Or do I need to be focused more on consistency, right? Where do you need to be focusing on? And so once you've had a chance to answer this question, I'd really love to hear it. So connect with me on Instagram. I'm on Instagram at SingWithIvan. or you can even email me at singingsimplywithme@gmail.com. I will drop it in the description below, but I'd love to hear your answer. And in fact, if you've got a question or a topic that you'd like to suggest next for this podcast or for this show, let me know there as well. I'm always looking to create content that it's going to serve and bring value to you all. So connect with me there as well. And apart from that, that wraps up our episode for today. Bit of a quick one, but I hope it has brought value to you. So remember, you are not your limitations. Take care, team. Hey team, if you've enjoyed this episode or found value, I'd really appreciate it if you could leave a review or a comment to let me know your thoughts on this and maybe some topics you want to hear in the future. And also share this episode with a friend or family that this could help, because the more people that can hear these kind of content, this kind of message, the merrier, the bigger our community grows, the better. So apart from that, really appreciate you for doing this, and I'll see you real soon. Take care.